Star Wars: The Last Jedi, aka Episode 8, is the ninth installment of the Star Wars franchise, which began back in May of 1977, and picks up where The Force Awakens left off back in December of 2015. Last Jedi is also the third installment of the franchise to not involve George Lucas, the creator of the classic original film. The new director this time, who is also the writer of this installment, is Rian Johnson, best known for the movie Looper. Each of the major characters from The Force Awakens, Finn, Rey, Poe Dameron, Kylo Ren, and of course Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, get a subplot of their own as the film goes in some mostly interesting places, both narratively and visually, and takes some mostly interesting chances with the material that, not surprisingly, has disappointed and even offended some fans. And if you have been reading into all of the fan theory stuff for the last 2 years since The Force Awakens about some of the new characters, which has also included the villain character Snoke, you will be, well, instead of going into spoilers, I'll just quote Luke from the trailer. This is not going to go the way you think. For the most part, I liked the answers that were given to the questions that I had, but not everything was answered because I know we still have Episode 9, which is where I assume everything else will be answered. Also, for those of you who are probably wondering what I thought of some of the moments in the film, like the subplot involving Finn and the new female hero Rose, well, first of all, since pod racing is the Star Wars version of Formula 1 racing, and Coruscant looks like every major city in the world combined, and we've also seen cantinas and kitchens, deserts, swamps, and snow. As a Star Wars fan growing up, I accepted those, therefore I can accept that there can be a James Bond-style casino in the Star Wars universe. But yes, that subplot with Finn and Rose did feel like a different movie, almost like one of those Marvel one-shot short films, like the one titled A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Thor's Hammer, which takes place before the events of the first Thor movie. It can be looked at as like an abruptness of tones and also like an abruptness of moods in the viewer. And I've had that with some of the past Star Wars films, with them cutting back and forth between different scenes that are all happening simultaneously and make me want to watch the YouTube fan edits of each of the scenes on YouTube, where each scene is edited together so that each one plays straight through with no cutting back and forth and no interruptions. Also, I'm kind of with those fans who were disappointed that the cool-looking Silver Stormtrooper character, Captain Phasma, played by Gwendoline Christie from Game of Thrones, was hardly in the movie, even though her fight with Finn was great, and I'm hoping to see more of her in Episode 9. Even though I'm not sure if she should be all backstoried up like Boba Fett ended up being in the prequel trilogy, and she is kind of the Boba Fett of this sequel trilogy. Plus, Benicio del Toro is in this movie in a supporting role, and while I like him as an actor and his character here was fine, he did come across as being a little distracting for me. Guardians of the Galaxy. Still, Daisy Ridley as Rey, John Boyega as Finn, Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron, and Adam Driver as Kylo Ren are all just as terrific as they all were in The Force Awakens. The new cast members are just as terrific. Mark Hamill is of course back as Luke Skywalker, and this time he has plenty of dialogue, unlike in The Force Awakens, where he appeared only at the end and had no lines. Even though the character of Luke is more a grumpy old man type this time, he is still the Luke we all remember and love, and Hamill is just as great as he was in the original trilogy. Without going into spoilers, there is a moment at the end of the film that is a nod to the Two Suns in the Sky moment with Luke in the original film, which I really liked. There are also, of course, some nice moments of humor, some of which involve BB-8, which is the little orange and white ball droid. I wish I had an actual size BB-8 in my home because I like the little guy. There is also one other spoiler that I must mention, and that is the ghost of Yoda makes an appearance in this movie, and it appears that they used a puppet again and not the computer-generated Yoda from the prequels. And I liked that because I've missed the Yoda puppet. The action in this movie is top-notch, as always, as is, of course, John Williams' score for this movie. I know that this movie has divided a lot of fans of the saga, and those who didn't like this movie have to remember that they only have to wait until the end of May to see director Ron Howard's young Han Solo movie, which I'm excited about. Even though The Last Jedi didn't quite pack the same punch for me as The Force Awakens did, it did more for me than what Rogue One did, but The Force Awakens is still my favorite of the recent 3 Star Wars movies. There, I said it. But overall, Rian Johnson did a terrific job with this movie, and I can't wait for his own Star Wars trilogy, which he is planning to do. I totally support him, and I will pay to see each installment of his trilogy. Lastly, the late Carrie Fisher as Leia was just as wonderful in The Last Jedi as she was in the original trilogy and in The Force Awakens, and it is extremely sad when seeing this movie knowing that it is the last time we will ever see her. Her dedication at the end of this movie was sad but beautiful, and may the Force be with her always. Thank you so much for watching, and there will be more because Lehtonen's Home Theater is always showing.